Well, hello, my name is Brandon Boland. I'm an 8th grade teacher at Westwood Middle School.
And I am Danielle Janite. I am a former Rawlings Elementary School teacher. We are here with Dr. Leanetta McNealy, who is running for re-election for school board. So we are here just as teachers. We wanted to hear from you, ask you a few questions that have been compiled by different teachers, and to get your thoughts on some different things as you are running for re-election. So our first question for you, what are your main goals to improve the school district overall for teachers and for students?
Well, as you probably have heard over weeks and weeks, and one of my top priorities is closing the academic and performance gap between children who look just like me, black children and white children. We have such a vast gap, and these are some things that I know teachers want and administrators want and the community and parents want just as much as I want. But there's got to be a change in how we convey our educational goals. There's got to be a way for looking at curriculum and seeing what hasn't worked, and is there a one size fits all? And I would say no. So we have to look at individual sites, individual students, and see what's best for students at Westwood, what's best for students in ESE or at Rollins, Lake Forest, Williams, Norton, Meadowbrook. So that means not only will curriculum folk have to work, but I want to see teachers, ESPs at the table. We are right in the backyard of the University of Florida and Santa Fe College. Why aren't those folk involved with us in helping make change? I know we have a lot of smart people in our community, and I'm thinking that I'm going to continue to ask, not only can we do different things with professional development, because that will be the key as well, to make change for our students. Closing the gap is hard work, but the way that we are going about it with our equity department and our staff, we have not moved the needle. And I'm very disappointed in that. And so we're going to need a lot of conversation. And as I said to some teachers the other day, I'm not so much about discussion and conversation, but then the action. So I'm hoping that with all that I've said, you understand that my desire and my priority will be to close the gap between our students. It's got to happen, and it can't be in 2028 as designated in our equity plan. So that's my top priority, and that's what I want to see different as we go forward.
Thank you.
Great. Dr. McNealy, you've obviously been on the school board for a number of years already, but what made you originally run for school board member, and why do you want to be re-elected again?
Okay. Well, one of the top things for me is providing a high quality education for all children in Alachua County. So I decided that as a former educator, as a former administrator, I thought this level is the right level for me to run to see that those things will occur. And I said, But one of the things to provide the best opportunities for children, and I'm going to always put children first, and one of the things I said in my platform, certainly supporting families, looking at salaries for all employees, teachers, as well as education support professionals, and building collaborative partnerships. I think we could do a better job with that. So those are some of the reasons that I chose to seek election in the beginning.
What are some specific ways that you would like to serve minorities at more diverse schools to ensure that the needs of learners across different households and income brackets and different races can be met?
One of the things, first of all, we have to make sure that the different races and the different levels of income that we are, my word is welcoming, that children, all children in our schools feel that they are valued. And so when we start with welcoming and feeling valued, I think that we have to look at how we impart knowledge. And I'm all for authentic teaching, not just from the textbook, but bringing in trips, modeling, speakers, plays, games, anything that will engage our students wanting to learn. And I think that's a key thing for all children. Back in my day, I reflect on how we had to work with our students from different incomes, how we engaged our parents, because parents, and we certainly have seen it in this pandemic, parents have to have some knowledge and understanding so that they can support their kids at home. Naturally, many of our parents who might come from a different income bracket may not have all of the skills. So we have to know how to work with those individuals as well as our community that may be a little bit more affluent. I think that if we work together, strategize, plan well, that will happen. How we can make for a diverse population and teach the standards and things that we need to be doing. So many times we get frustrated because our children who may not come from homes that are on the ground, well, not the ground level, but at a different level, and we don't know how to access those children and impart the knowledge. It comes with training. And all of our great teachers have come from great institutions. I'm not taking anything away from our instructional staff, but there's always other things that we can improve in and learn from each other.
Dr. McNealy, how do you plan, or what initiatives would you put in place to close the achievement gap between Black students and white students across the entire district?
Right. Well, one of the things in our DA schools, I know that we are giving extra instruction, maybe I think it's at least an hour per day of extra instruction. I would think that schools that are not DA schools and schools that have a high achievement in our white students, but our Black students are still struggling and they are still maybe ones and twos. You've got to do some type of remediation for those children as well. I know that you may have pull-out programs in the schools, targeting, I hate to use the word targeting, but providing extra support for those children. That must be in all of the schools that have children and kids and students that are struggling. The curriculum that we afford them may not be the exact thing that they need. I know a lot of times, I have to keep saying, back when I was in a school, we looked at Success for All, and some other schools have used that. I think Rollins used it for a while, and a lot of teachers said, well, it was so scripted, and they didn't like it. But when you look at the total program, because that, and I'm citing that program, because it involved the family, we had plenty of things outside of the classroom, night type activities, and my staff was excited about coming to those types of events to help the parents and the families. You have to understand it's not just about the brick and mortar, but what happens when the children go home. You know, yes, we're social workers, we're nurses, we are educators, we are all of these things, but we have to keep in mind that something has to be done beyond 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So what are we going to provide? Are we going to do more guidance with the children, social workers? What can be different to bring up that achievement gap? One thing students need to understand in all schools, that they can achieve. And once they understand that, and you have built up the necessary trust with them, not saying that you've got to be their ace boon coon, but that they trust you and respect you, they will eat out of your hands as an instructor. Once you build that trust with a kid, once they know that you actually care, they're going to do whatever it takes to do what you're expecting. Now, learning doesn't stop at 2 o'clock. You might have to do some things like weekend school. You may have to go into the neighborhood, into their sites where there is a, what do they call it? Help me. Like if you're in that apartment building and you go...
It's like the community center?
A community center. There may be devices that you need to help students with in those community centers. Reach out to some of the leadership in the community. There are great leaders in the Black community who could really assist and help. Another thing that's missing, I think, the diversity of our staff in our schools. And at one time we had a recruiter who did nothing but look for strong African American staff to come into our system. But that went away, like so many of our other things. I think a diverse staff, a understanding administration, listening to the people who are in the classrooms. That's a must. And it's a must for the district as well. What are some things that you learned at the universities that you matriculated in? What are some things that you can do different than Harcourt Brace? What are the things that will engage the children? No one. That's why I started the fine arts at Duval. And then I could see a change in the attitude of our children because they wanted to be there. And we embedded, if we were teaching history or mathematics, we did that with the art, with the music, even in physical education, in our sculpture, in our drama club, in our media club. So we wanted children to want to be there, to want to learn, to know that they were valued, to respect their teachers and each other, and to engage the parents with it all. So I've given you a lot of different variables that I think would be important in closing the achievement gap. Do not leave out the community. There are people out there who really want to be involved. I think that we need to have paraprofessionals who are able to complement that classroom instructor. So many times we have children 18 in the primary grades, 22 in the intermediate grades, but you still need to have that individualized instruction, one-on-one, and so that extra adult in the classroom could help tremendously with that. So and I may touch on it again, but these are some concepts that I think would definitely benefit the children that you're trying to provide the best for.
The next couple of questions is kind of a combined question here, specifically about magnets, magnet programs. So, two questions here I'm going to ask at once. What is your specific plan to address racial disparity in magnet programs? And how can we provide access to the magnet program for the students that are zoned for those schools? So racial disparity in the programs and access for the students of the home zone school.
Well, the magnet department probably would not agree with me, but in my magnet program, well, the first year, every child in the school, they were able to select their class that they wanted to study. And then the second year, we open it up to the whole district. And I think when I look at the school that I live closest to, Lincoln Middle School, and I see what happens in their magnet versus the regular, they don't call it regular ed, the major program, the major program. But in order for, I know that we've established magnets to identify a certain topic, whether it's mathematics or engineering or culinary arts or whatever. But I want other students to be able to have a portion of that as well. And it's so unfair to me that, and I mentioned this the other day at a particular school, and I don't think there's anyone in here from that school, but when you go on the magnet side with the children who are learning, they are really a warm environment. The teachers are excited, the colorful classrooms, and then you go on the other side of the building, and boy, is it drab and boredom in those classrooms. So back to the question, how do you get the other children involved? I think they are going to have a piece of that action. They may not qualify because of grade point average or test scores, but I think something needs to be done for them too. I don't know how parents would feel where children have developed and have these high grade point averages, and then you put Johnny right beside them in that same classroom where they have not afforded to be in that classroom because they don't have the GPA or the test scores. But I'm here to tell you, folk, we've got to do something else. And I wish there was a school where like we did, everyone could be involved. That may be dreaming pie in the sky, but hey, let's look at what's going on. I think we need to do something of that nature. Now, it was the second part. Give me the second part.
You touched on it, just addressing what that would look like for students that are zoned for the school, how they could have access to those programs as well.
Do you all realize, and I'm going off now, do you realize how students feel when their friends that they have friendships with, and they are going in one side of the building, and all of these fun things are going on, and field trips to expand the knowledge, and they don't have it? Can you just feel that? Well, I'm going to be quiet because I will get emotional about things like that. It's not fair. It's just not fair. And I wish that you all could give me some suggestions as to what are some things that I can go back and say, this is what we're going to do. I need those directions. I need that kind of help if you have some ideas.
Dr. McNealy, what are 3 ways that you feel the district can help retain and recruit certified and experienced teachers in Alachua County, especially in high-need schools?
Well, the first thing, I said back some minutes ago, you've got to have someone who's really a good recruiter. But coming to Gainesville, and just because Gators who come from the University of Florida, we normally get some of those wonderful persons to stay because they may have a friend, a boyfriend, a husband who's still finishing, and so they stay for that period of time. But in order to get folk to come to the low-performing schools, y'all don't make enough money. I'm sorry, I didn't mean y'all. The teachers do not have the right compensation for the types of work that is required of them in our low-performing schools. If you're going to, and that's a union thing, I say it all the time, but in collective bargaining, the union will say it's not fair for you to give that kind of compensation for the teachers who work in the schools like that and not for all of the others. There's got to be other caveats other than just money. You've got to look at what are you offering the teachers? Are you doing anything other than trying to give them a little TESA money or a little UNICEF money? Sometimes it's not all about the money. It might be, you might work out something with the University of Florida where if people want to go back and advance their degrees, that you would have tuition free. There are a lot of other things that we could figure out. What can we do to get people? First of all, you've got to get them. And once you get them into those schools, you've got to treat them fairly. There need not be retaliation because you didn't do this or you said something here. I was trying to think of something else that would be possible. When I came to Gainesville back in the day, the Florida Credit Union was the Florida Teachers Union back then, and they gave us an opportunity to open accounts, get a loan. Most of us were very, very young, and I had a baby and a husband back in the day. And so we needed help financially, and they made it more affordable and help. These are the kinds of things that the school district had worked out with the banking institution. I'm just thinking, I met some teachers last Friday, who said they would never leave a school. But everybody doesn't think that way. And people do get tired. And people do want out because they are burned out because of what comes at them all of the time. So what does an administrator, what does the district do to hold on to those teachers who are so valuable? What can we do differently? And I'm thinking of that all the time. And not just instructional staff, but you've got hard-working educational support professionals who don't want to hang in there with us. What are the things that you can do? You have really riled me up quite a bit, both of you, with what are we not doing? Because as you ask me these questions, we're not handling things well. It's obvious.
Great. Dr. McNealy, What are your thoughts
Are you
about?
gonna say Lee for one time? All right, Lee.
What are your thoughts on school zoning, and would you consider rezoning schools to make them more diverse, or prefer neighborhood zone schools?
One of the things that I've said, because we are in the midst of getting ready to rezone, and so the District Advisory Council that we call DAC has been talking about that. We had a DAC meeting today, and unfortunately I had to leave that to go to another meeting. But our schools are basically resegregated if you really look closely inside. Unfortunately, many years ago, the board that was in charge at that time decided on the neighborhood concept. And so when you have neighborhoods that are not diverse, then if you're going to use that model to enroll your school, you're going to have just that. It's unfortunate that some members of the school board might be afraid of not being reelected because you're asking for some cross-busing and other things that we could do to change the dynamics of our school. If you never reelect me, I would always still say what I'm saying now. There's an economic situation that we need to look at when we are talking about rezoning. Not only academic and economic, but what does this mean? You're gonna be over at whoever knows what School I is gonna be, but I understand that Oakmont neighborhood, you have basically starting at $400,000 homes and going on up. Think about the children and the advantages that those children have had, and not to take anything away from them, but if that school is going to be just that, and you don't have a diverse population, and listen, y'all, listen, teachers, Black children have been bused forever to make schools more diverse. And you all are too young to realize that. In my day, when I was in school, we were always bused. Always. But other cultures don't want to come east. So here's my thinking. There has to be some type of parameter and boundary. You wouldn't move the whole county around, but you've got to have some kind of way, the fringes and whatever, to make schools not be segregated. It bothers me when I go to performances and there are two little ones that look like me in the midst of a chorus. Something is wrong with that picture, but you can't help it because you don't have many children who are Black at this school. Or you may walk into another classroom and there may be one. It's the same, and I don't know how those students make it or react, but it was the same way when a few white students came to Duval when I was principal to be in the fine arts program. You know, because they might be the only white child in a group of 20 beautiful Black children. We have not done a good job. It takes a board, it takes the school board members to have acknowledged, number one, they need to acknowledge that it's one-sided, and then say, let's work at this together. I think if you make the schools as beautiful and nice as some of the schools across town, Northwest, some parents may not mind for their children to travel to come. And I'm not saying somebody way in Newberry coming way over to Lake Forest. I'm not saying that. But there could be a configuration for mixing the enrollment better than we have. I'm all for rezoning. With all that's going on in this world today with race and racism, and I thought I would have had a question like that pushed at me, but no, don't look. But we have to be better with understanding each other's culture. We have to. And so everybody, the Asian families and the black families and the white families and the Native American families, all should be interspersed in our schools. Oh my, what could children learn from each other? I want this county to be rezoned. Brown versus, what was it?
Board of Education.
Huh?
Brown versus Board of Education.
Thank you. Was back in the 50s. And here we are, 2020. And when that school finishes constructed in 2021, I wonder what it's going to look like. What will the staff look like? But more importantly, what will the classroom of children look like?
Well, Dr. McNealy, thank you so much for your time.
It was Lee. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lee, for your time. We very much appreciate you taking time out of your day and your very busy schedule to come and meet with the team of teachers. We very much thank you for all that you do for our school board and look forward to having you continue to stay on our board.
I want to thank you all, and even with the new group of Teachers for Change, that's overdue as well. And I know that many of you have voices, but as I said the other night, I want your voices to be made at school board meetings. I want you to have your voices made at school board meetings and also the ballot box. But please hear me out. You cannot go back. So many teachers go back into cocoons. You need to flourish. You are important, so important. Do you understand the value that just today is bringing to me? Oh my gosh, I've got so much to think about because you have laid the groundwork here with your questions. So many things. These are the kind of discussions that we should have, if not monthly, quarterly, that teachers come in and meet with all 5 board members and meet with all of the curriculum department and say it, and let's have an exchange. Oh my. Okay. Thank you for involving me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.